because of their extensive injuries. The Civil Defense Department says operations will now focus on recovering the dead. In just 6 months, Christchurch will be playing host to the Rugby World Cup. Coming up, we'll take a look at how and if the city will be ready for the big sporting event. We'll have all that and plenty more in just a few minutes when I'm back with another full bulletin, including the latest from Libya. A reminder, you can also keep up to date with all the news on our website. That's at aljazeera.net/English.
On the next Riz Khan show, world-renowned feminist Eve Ensler explains her latest project to empower the numerous victims of sexual violence in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Riz Khan, at this time on Al Jazeera.
The Golan Heights, one of the spoils of the 1967 war, home to 20,000 Israelis and source of 1/3 of all Israel's water. But what of the Syrians left behind? With families torn apart and all borders closed, they come to talk to their loved ones across the Shouting Valley. Across the Shouting Valley on Al Jazeera.
Rhythms of resistance.
A part of the struggle and popular resistance is art. Through my art, I resist. Resistance is my art, and my art is my war.
Musicians using music as a way to maintain their cultural identity.
I believe that when I sing to the world, I portray Palestine through my voice, my singing, and my songs.
Songs from the lost homeland. At this time, on Al Jazeera.
The relocation of the Ahmadiyya has magnified the issue of religious intolerance in Indonesia. Is this inevitable in a multicultural society? And is the government turning a blind eye?
101 East at this time on Al Jazeera.
Behind the harsh reality of headline stories, creative forces are constantly developing. Across the globe, people use their talents, their imagination, and their vision to break down powerful barriers. From a small backroom theater challenging a despotic regime, to the courage of individuals searching for expression. With rich colors and clear voices, people communicate to a wider world. Artscape, coming soon on Al Jazeera.
The battle for Brega. Rebels take on the might of the Libyan Air Force in the oil-rich town.
Let's just call a spade a spade. A no-fly zone begins with an attack on Libya.
But America's defense chief warns about the implications of imposing a no-fly zone over the country. Hello, I'm Anand Naidu in Doha. This is Al Jazeera. In the next half hour, we'll be bringing you the very latest on the uprising in Libya. Al Jazeera has learned that the Venezuelan president has offered to mediate a solution to the crisis. We'll have an update from Caracas. And in other news, thousands flee their homes as fighting intensifies between pro and anti-government forces in Côte d'Ivoire. It's 8 o'clock in Libya as the uprising against Muammar Gaddafi enters another day. Some of the fiercest fighting since protests began last month has taken place in Brega. Tony Bertley filed this report from the rebel-controlled region.
It was a call to arms that was answered by thousands. From the towns and the desert, opposition fighters gathered in Ajdabia to repel an attack by forces loyal to Gaddafi. Their weapons range from the powerful tanks and anti-aircraft batteries to those more at home in a museum. There was confusion and disorganization. Shells were fired out. Complaints returned as residents ahead explained they were coming under fire from their own side.
What about the capability? I mean, you've got a lot of men here and you've got a lot of weapons. Can the men use the weapons?
God willing, they will learn to use the weapons effectively.
The conviction of the volunteers has to be admired. The capability is open to question. Gaddafi's forces were said to number around 300 men. They attacked the strategically important town of Brega at first light, and witnesses said they began firing indiscriminately.
This is in the morning. Many people come in mafia for Gaddafi. He killed many people in the morning.
Heavy weapons were sent forward and hundreds of trucks and cars stacked with ammo and guns taken from captured army stockpiles. Casualties came back. Many hurt, he told us, many dead.
This doesn't seem to have been a full-fledged assault, more like a probing attack. But it shows that Gaddafi forces are strong, they can strike at will, and that the Libyan leader shows no signs of giving up. Quite the contrary, he's hitting back.
10 kilometers from Brega and more forces congregated. No one seemed to know exactly what was happening. Then a Libyan Air Force bomber circled overhead. Its first bombing run hit close to the center of the fighting near Brega University. The second hit our position. Landing 70 meters away. Miraculously, no one was hurt. Then Gaddafi's fighters fled.
We suddenly saw some Toyota cars with anti-aircraft batteries. They started firing mortar rounds. The shells fell near us.
They left behind spent mortar, shell and machine gun casings and 10 dead civilians. 21 people were wounded, including a 7-year-old boy who survived a bullet lodged in his nose.
These people who were killed, were they fighters or were they ordinary people?
Ordinary people. Ordinary people. He is going when Gaddafi's people. He is coming to university.
2 of the bodies were said to be of Gaddafi fighters. It was claimed one carried ID showing he was from Niger in Africa, but it's hard to verify. Despite the howls of bravado, this brazen attack has provoked both fear and anger and reminds everyone of the violent threats of Gaddafi. On Wednesday, we witnessed why the opposition is desperate for a no-fly zone and why it may not have the military capability to liberate all of Libya by force just yet. But this conflict seems far from over, and the question is how many more Libyans are going to die before it is. Tony Bertley, AlJazeera, Brega, Eastern Libya.
On Wednesday, Colonel Gaddafi gave another lengthy address detailing yet again why he would not be stepping down. But the protesters appear equally defiant. As the violent standoff continues, AlJazeera has learned that the Venezuelan president could be trying to mediate an end to the crisis. Muammar Gaddafi has accepted that offer by Hugo Chavez. Our correspondent Dima Khatib has the details from the Venezuelan capital, Caracas.
Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez spoke on the phone to Muammar Gaddafi and proposed to him the idea of forming a commission for peace in Libya, and Muammar Gaddafi is said to have approved that idea. From then on, the Venezuelan foreign minister contacted Amr Moussa, the Secretary General of the Arab League, and I am told by a government source in Venezuela that Amr Moussa also approved the mediation idea. So